think this is from, okay, Braun emailed us a few emails back. Oh, let's see, he's emailed us again. I'll try to keep this email by itself. Oh man, I'm confused right now. My brain is so fogged up from having this bug. And but Braun emailed us earlier with some very interesting experiences. We're gonna read out another one he's got right here. Mark it as read. The title is number 1, 1953. Number 2, 1965. Hello, Steve. I sent you an email which you shared from my experience in 1953 when I was 8 years old. You asked for more information, so here we go. I did send you an off-topic rant and one prior that ties some of what I will share in the next email. In 1965, I took leave from the Navy to go hunting with my grandmother's second husband, Nate. He was a great guy and a hunter that liked his creature comforts. Definitely not a woodsman in my humble opinion. We headed up to Modoc National Forest, Northern California, his favorite hunting area. We got there a couple days before opening day and found a spot with 6 trees to rig up a wall tent out of an old oiled canvas tarp. I got everything rigged up to his satisfaction, then helped unload the gear. You'll love this and understand my comment about the creature comforts. He had the top of a 4-burner stove and a bottle of gas because he didn't like ashes in his food. I thought, W2F, but said nothing and did as instructed. Long story short, I spent the day getting his Hilton Into the Woods set up, thinking to myself, Nate, you've effing lost it. I was raised old school, so I kept my thoughts to myself. Not to mention the fact that I loved that old man. I was in the best shape of my life then, 5 feet 11, 225, with 11% body fat. We spent the next day scouting, and the third day got down to the serious business of getting meat. He did impress me, though. We hiked about 6 miles to a spot he liked. The old logging road wrapped around the top of the mountain. Nate told me to head up and over the top, and he would shoot anything I scared out of the woods. We would meet at the southwest side where the road came around the mountain. It took me about 3 hours to work my way up and over and then down to the road. No Nate. F. I whistled and called his names 3 times. I whistled and called his name 3 times and nothing. Shit. My first thought was to work back around the road and find him. Then it gets really weird from here. I whistled again and got a reply from the bottom of the canyon across the road and below me. It was a good 400 yards down. I whistled again and got a second whistle in reply. Now I was really worried about him, so I just started jumping down the hill, covering 20 plus feet per jump. Now one of them, I slid under a deadfall and ripped the shins out of my Levi's and a bunch of hide on my shins. I dragged myself out and whistled again and got a reply, and then continued down the hill. Now it gets really screwed up. I landed at the bottom exactly where I heard the responding whistles, but no Nate. I whistled again, and this time it came from downstream, so I headed down there through the damn brush. After a couple 100 yards through that shit, I whistled again. This time the response came from upstream of me. What the hell? So I humped my herding ass back up to where I'd just been. Then I saw the so-and-so shimmer. Most people would think whoever it was invisible, but shit, this a-hole was trying to control my third eye. Once I figured that out, he was effed because now I could see him, LOL. I sent him a message from my subconscious brain. I had learned as a boy of 8. I told him, okay, F-nuts, I can see you now. It's your move, ass breath. Now, where in the F is my grandfather? What the hell did you do with him? And if you hurt a hair on his head, you will die here and F and now. To say I was pissed off would be an understatement. He said, don't worry, little brother, your grandfather's in camp worrying about you. I asked, then what the hell is going on here? He said, having fun with you. At the point I turned to start back up where I had just come from, he then told me to go on up the other side. When I got to the road, turn left, and the fork, stay left, and you'll get back to your camp. Long story short, I got back to camp at midnight with no damn flashlight. Nate said, where in the hell have you been, boy? And what happened to your Levi's and dried blood on them? I just said I was hunting for you, sir. He just laughed and said, you must have run into the forest clown. Was it fun? The rest of the hunt was great. I got my buck because I followed what I learned as a boy. He got skunked, LOL. Well, Steve, that wraps up my number 2 interaction with these folks. By the way, the, quote, forest clown, end quote, and I didn't speak at all. Communication was from thought transfer only. One more thing, this guy was huge. When he came down to the bottom where I was, knee-deep in the creek, I was just a little above his waist, about up to his pecs. His arms were bigger than my legs. His legs were as big as my chest. Based on my size and weight, he should have tipped the scales around 800 to 900 pounds. His eyes were wide and large with a curious intelligence behind them. His facial features weren't all that different than mine, except he was covered with dark brown hair, not black. One more thing, this guy had more... Alright, this is kind of graphic, but one more thing. This is word for word. One more thing, this guy had more dick soft than I had heart. It was proportionate given his size. But in those days, I knew a lot of ladies who had died to have it. Died to have it. This email is too long already, and I think you'll find experience number 3 interesting, and the email I sent you before my rant will help tie the pieces together. Take care, Steve, and keep your head on a swivel. There are good ones and a few badass sons of bitches who hate everybody, including their own kind. I no longer live in the Pacific Northwest and have relocated halfway around the world, where I'm getting 5 daughters through college, 8 more years before I get that done. Then maybe come back for one more hunt, for game this time, not the free people. Hang in there, brother. Respectively, Braun. Lowercase denotes I'm a human being, not a damn corporation. Okay, Braun. Appreciate your share, man. And I hope I didn't miss something in between this one, but if I did, I'll find it and I'll share it with everybody soon enough, right? All right, here's a quick little short note I copied from somebody. I'll share that and then I'm getting out of here. Yate! Getting ready to go outdoor camp with kids. Just observed your last video. Agree. If there's a devil or a Satan, he is in control of mainstream media. As a federal contractor, taught wilderness survival, USMC 80s and 90s, also worked as a personal protection specialist for stock market gurus. But most are clueless. Absolute hunters of money, nothing else. But they will protect that investment at any cost. Look today, the people in charge of the U.S., Larry Fink and Janet Yellen, trillionaire owners of everything. They were put in control of the U.S. Fed Reserve by the present administration after, at the very least, questionable election. Race baiting everywhere. This is control for them. All right, I'll share this one more, then I'll get out of here. Hi, Steve. My name's Chris. I live in northeastern Colorado. I grew up in eastern Washington State on a farm bordering the Potholes area and spent countless hours hunting, fishing, and trapping there. When the Patterson film came out, I must have been around 11 years old. I did not know what to think about it, but never forgot it. Fast forward several years, now living in Colorado, I started bow hunting in northeastern mountains just west of the Front Range town of Fort Collins. A few videos back, they mentioned Cache La Poudre River, pronounced Pooter. Same general area. First weird thing that happened was hunting on the old Zimmerman Trail, riding my mule, and she became bothered and nervous, ready to blow up. My first thought was mountain lion, so I stopped her and turned around to look. Nothing there. When we started going again, all the hair on the back of my neck stood up and gave me the willies. We kept going with no problem. I had this mule for 32 years, got her when she was 2. When this happened, I think she was 3 or 4, and every time we went through there, she'd not forget that spot. I lost her when she was 34 years old. We rode thousands of miles together. I know how you feel, but life goes on. The second area I was hunting in, we would ride in on a closed road, drop down a game trail into a big meadow, and I would tie up there and still hunt the area. While hunting, I had the very urgent feeling that I need to get out of there now. This feeling hit me right in the chest, and I wanted to run. But again, I thought cat, so I knocked an arrow, turned around slowly, nothing there. Studied the area for a few minutes, still nothing, so I moved on. And within 100 yards or so, the feeling went away. Until I found your channel, I had not heard of this projected fear. This happened 3 different times over a few years hunting that spot, and every time I thought cat. The last time I was a little different. The feeling hit me, and I remember thinking, well, what a way to... And I remember thinking, well, what way do I go? And I thought, well, I was going this way, and right away had this feeling that to go that way was okay. If it was all right to go the way I was going, why the hell did they have to scare the shit out of me? About this time, all the game disappeared out of this area, and I moved on too. Third is not so much of an encounter, but over the years I have shared a camp with a couple of older fellows, off and on, and just good old boys and very experienced outdoorsmen. One of these guys has been in the mountains since he was a boy, but he cannot wrap his head around the possibility that Sebe might exist. Because all this, I would bring it up around camp, just to jab him a little. Well, one night he comes into camp mad as hell and says that some anti-hunters were down on the draw he was watching and hollering real loud. He thought at first someone was lost or hurt down in there, so he hollered back and all got quiet. A few minutes later, it started again. I told him no anti was down on that draw. I've hunted it, and it's a jungle down in there. The next year, he's on his guard on his quad, sitting and watching a different spot, and a dog started barking 100 yards or so in the trees. He went to check it out, but it took him a while because his knees are bad. When he got closer, the barking stopped, so he would sit down on a log and listen for a while, hearing nothing. Heading back to his quad, the barking started again. No houses were anywhere close. When he got home, he called me, and I could tell he was very puzzled by this, so I suggested he look up Bigfoot sounds on the internet. 15 minutes later, he calls me and back and says he looked up Sierra sounds, and that's what I heard. Now he has changed his mind and thinks it was a cow moose in the heat. He asked the other old boy. Says Chris thinks the Bigfoot is real. What do you think? He says he might be real. I think I saw one on a ridge above camp. When I asked him about that, he says he didn't know what he saw, but it was big and shaggy. That's all I could get out of him. Question. Did your horses ever give you reason to believe one of these were around? This is completely different behavior than game being close. Sorry, this was long, but I thought it might help someone's puzzle. Your channel helped me. I see your buddy Trudeau wants to limit YouTube speech. Well, we knew it was coming. I hope your new place is out of harm's way because it is coming. The good army you talked about, where do we sign up? So tired of the control freaks, so-called leaders. Your channel is the only place I feel I get the truth. God bless and thank you for your time, Chris. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what's going on in the world today, isn't it? The dark sons of bitches that are manipulating us nonstop. Oh. We'll get to the bottom of it as long as we don't stay shut up, right? It's got to keep speaking open, sharing the honest to God knowledge with each other, and stay the course at all costs. Trudeau, imagine that. Look, we get stuck with the leader, right? Frickin' skateboard riding drama teacher. Oh, wait a minute. He's a snowboarder. He never got the green light to use wheels. But anyway, thanks for the email, my man. Share more when you can. Speak openly about this topic as much as you can, all right? Now I got to get home. It's time to go. Share my story, howtohunt.com. Tell my story, howtohunt.com. And we'll get to it. And make sure you all keep talking. Keep talking. Keep sharing, all right? I'm cheating. I'm sitting on a comfy seat again. I'm not hiking. Where am I today? Where am I today? Today I am facing north right now. And if you look on the map, Duffy Lake is basically, as a crow flies, behind me on the other side of those mountains. You go back that way about, I don't know, from here I would guess 15 miles. You probably hit that Duffy Lake from here, I'm guessing. But anyway, feeling much better. Thank you to everybody who's concerned about my health. I'm fine. Definitely not dying of no COVID. Definitely wasn't worried. I drink well water, and I eat fish and game and fresh veggies. That's going to kill the shit out of anything and keep you healthy. And I definitely thoughts go out to all the people who have complications with their health and the COVID virus. It's not a good combo, right? But anyway, let's get on to some of these emails right now. While I'm here, I'm behind and sharing the whole pile. Let's listen to this. I really like your videos. There's so much shit we do not understand. Years ago, I was on a semester-long outdoor leadership course while in college. We were in a remote part of the Wind River Range in Wyoming. Climbing, fishing, training, etc. This is on the reservation portion of the range at Grave Lake, a pristine wilderness lake surrounded by granite peaks. We were camped in a meadow on the north side of the lake and routinely slept out under the stars. One of our instructors, Steve Young, relayed a story some weeks later about his experience in that meadow. He slept under some lying pine boughs to minimize the dew on his back. He was awakened abruptly and sat up to see an old Indian man standing over 3 sleeping students. The man had a plaid shirt and wore jeans, and he was very old with long white hair. Steve said he was frozen in awe, more than fear, and was trying to sort out what he was seeing. The man looked all over the 3 sleeping students, then turned and walked away, disappearing. The next morning, Steve said nothing, as he didn't want to alarm anyone or be ridiculed. He found no tracks the next morning and started to question himself. Was it a dream? Grave Lake is reportedly an Indian burial site, but I'm not certain about that. Fast forward 14 years and I was back at Grave Lake with a group of friends from Weyerhaeuser, Colorado. We had the Allen brothers pack us in the roughly 20 miles and we would hike out. Upon arrival at the meadow, the horses freaked and tossed a couple of my friends. All were okay, but the lead wrangler said, "F, I hate this scary-ass place." He told me the horses always went weird there. Wished us luck, and then they got out of there fast. I didn't have a sense of unease there. Never did. Quite the opposite. But when fishing the lakeshore, I did feel watched, but I just spoke to the unseen and shared my intentions. All good. Second night there, it started up to snow. Warren and Wendy Travers were camped across a small creek in their tent. The rest of us were on the other side in tents, and I was under a tarp. The next morning, we decided to start our trip out, as the winds in mid-September can get dumped on. Warren thanked me for adjusting their tent lines during the snowfall last night. I said I did no such thing. He argued and laughed and said, "Why didn't you respond when I spoke to you?" I replied once, and for all, I didn't cross the creek or mess with their tent last night. Wendy didn't say much. Fast forward 2 years, and Warren and Wendy accompanied me on a trip. I led sea kayaking in the Queen Charlottes. Awesome trip. Wendy and I drove the big van and kayak trailer home to Western Washington from Prince Rupert while the others flew. During that drive, we got to talking about strange experiences. Wendy's a very sophisticated Australian, and her husband Warren was a VP at Weyerhaeuser but grew up in New Zealand. Very worldly people. I relayed the story Steve shared at Grave Lake in the very meadow we camped in a couple years ago. Wendy just said, "Oh my God." I asked her why she reacted that way. She replied, "I saw him that snowy night. Same old Indian man, dressed as described." She said she'd been awakened in a bit of a daze and left the tent to pee. The man was sitting on a log near the tent and they exchanged nods. She felt no sense of fear, returned to the tent and slept until morning. When Warren was teasing me about messing with her tent and I denied it, she realized she hadn't dreamt her encounter. She told no one until I shared Steve's story. I suspect you've had similar experiences or know of a few. Get better or keep changing. Murray, Tetons. Okay, Murray, thanks for that email, and I'm guessing if somebody else is familiar with that same place, and maybe they can relate to what you just shared with the planet, right? Maybe they've had the same experiences. Who knows? There's my token airplane right over my head. Hi, Steve. I know you get an insane amount of emails, and I have sent this to you twice before. Thought I'd try one more time to see if you think it's worthy of your show. No sweat if you have too many to include mine. Well, in case you missed the memo, everybody's voice counts here, all right? That's how we get honest knowledge in the world today, is going to the people and listening to the people and listening to all the people. That's what a community is, right? Obviously, we've lost our sense of community in most communities, which is kind of sad. But I'm quite certain the route we've taken on this channel is bringing community back big time. And what I'd like to touch on there a little bit, you know, as we're growing up or we're on a team or in school or wherever, workplace, wherever, and we've all run across that odd person who turns out to be what may be called a storyteller or a chronic bullshitter, right? And for me, I mean, I meet people from all over. I've met so many people from all over the world for so many years. I've met every single flavor of personality you can come up with. And for me, you know, I know what's worthy of arguing with somebody over. I know what's worthy, if it's worthy of calling somebody on their shit, which isn't that often actually. It's rarely worth it to call somebody on their shit. You just listen to their bullshit. I do. It goes in one ear, goes out the other, and I carry on, and I don't lose any sleep over it. But sadly for the so-called storyteller or the bullshitter, for me, once you know they have bullshit you or are bullshitting you, they're done. Their credibility's done. Unfortunately, right? There's no going back again. So for me, if I'm in the company of somebody who's a known storyteller, bullshitter, I'll be polite to them, I'll listen to them, I'll engage with them, but sadly, I will admit, every single thing that comes out of their mouth goes in one ear and out the other and doesn't even register. I can't help it. It's just an automatic block. And I'm making that note to also make a note on the mainstream news sources. All right? Both Canadian and American, I'd imagine more other news sources across the planet, but predominantly the American and Canadian main name news sources have lied to us. And it's not hard to go and look into it yourself to confirm that. So for me, I don't listen to mainstream news sources once they've lied to me. It wouldn't even make sense to, right? So I don't understand how so many, like I've looked up a couple of mainstream news sources and just seen what kind of views they've had per month. And it's in the millions still. And I can't believe it. I just cannot believe that millions of people still will actually tune into a known bullshit delivering news source. I don't get it. But hey, what I'm getting at, I guess I went a little bit of a tangent there, but it is something that I wanted to touch on with everybody, was to encourage all of you to, as soon as you come across someone or an establishment or a group or a news outlet that bullshits you, kick them to the curb. Ultimately, kick them to the curb and don't go back there and support them. All right? And get your information from the people of your community. That's where you're going to get the information. Now, getting back to the email, I was emailing right now. Before I started babbling like a doorknob there, everybody's voice counts and everybody's encouraged to email in. And here, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you don't know who's bullshitting you. That person could have been a bullshitter. I think I'm smelling a few more extra bullshit emails coming on lately. Well, guess what? Here, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. Here. That's the way it's supposed to be. For a lot of people, I've had other friends of mine who voiced concern about us being, quote, potentially infiltrated by somebody who wants to make asses out of us and show us to be gullible. I get it. I understand that point of view. But my point of view is, and I've made it clear in the past, anyone who emails me and then boasts later that they were bullshitting, fed me a story, I'm going to be absolutely stoked if that happens, because then we have them. We got them by the balls. We get to post up who they are, their email, their story, and then they are completely exposed to the world as a chronic bullshitter. And you don't come back from that. You don't survive from that, right? You will survive being bullshitted too, but you won't survive being the bullshitter. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of people that might complain about me sharing all these emails, I'm not the judge. Nobody's the judge but you. So that's why I encourage everyone to take from it what you will or leave it, okay? But number one, every single person that emails in is innocent until proven guilty, whether or not they may be a storyteller or a bullshitter. And I am looking forward to the first person who might possibly go out of their way to write us a story, thinking they're going to expose us as being gullible or easily misled, when the actual reality is, as soon as we get somebody who's to send us in a blatant bullshit story, I share it, and then they boast about it later. We got them. And then we put them on the known list of absolute bullshitters in our society, and then they're done. They're useless. For the rest of their life, they're done. They did it to themselves. See what I'm getting at? How was that for a quick little interruption and babble? All right, here we go. Back to what last sentence. No sweat if you have too many to include mine. Yours is getting included. Everybody's is. It's just who manages to get seen first and read next. My name's Andy. Shenkal McDo is just my Facebook and YouTube handle. I'm a 5th generation Floridian, and I live in Southwest Florida. I'm 50 years old and have spent much of my life in the outdoors and have hunted and fished my entire life. I'd like to share my encounter. I live in Lee County, Florida, but the story I want to share occurred in Charlotte County, just north of Lee. Before I start, I have to explain that my experience piggybacks off a story that was told to me by an old friend whose Floridian lineage goes back much further than mine. I won't give his name, but I'll call him Billy. When Billy was a young man, late 1960s, he used to hunt gators with a friend to support his family. Technically, this is poaching, but it was what kept food on his family's table, and the point is not to judge his past, but establish the setting for this story. I concur. You got to do what you got to do. Billy and his friend would have their wives drop them off at a certain location and pick them up several days later in the next county. During this time, they would travel and hunt as they walked through the southwest Florida woods and swamps, collecting hides as they went. They only took with them a .22 caliber rifle, usually a single-shot rifle, and a cast-iron skillet with which to make their dinner over a fire. At dark, they would stash the rifle 50 yards from the camp under some palmettos in one direction, and stash the hides 50 yards from the camp in the other direction. This way, if they were discovered by game wardens, the worst trouble they would get in was trespassing. In those days, game wardens would go after the poachers in the deep woods, and the result was a kind of a cat-and-mouse game. It was a real possibility that you could be camped in the middle of the woods, 10 miles from the nearest road, and be come upon by a game warden from out of nowhere. And that's how it was done. On one trip, Billy and his friend decided to carry a young fellow along with them because he had heard their stories and wanted to learn how to do what they did. So they allowed this kid to come along. At one point, they made camp in an area of Avon Park, and after dinner, they laid down around the dying fire to go to sleep. During dinner, they heard something walking around the camp. It was heavy, like a big man, and it was walking on two legs. Although they could hear it, he was trying to be quiet. Billy thought it was a game warden, watching them before he made his approach, and so he whispered to the others to go about their business like they didn't hear anything and ignore it. But the game warden never came out to them. Whatever it was just kept circling the camp. When they lay down to sleep, they were lying around the fire with their bodies like one side of a triangle with the fire in the middle of them. As the fire died and got dimmer, the unknown creature would take advantage of the dimming light and come closer. This made the men a little nervous, and the kid was downright scared. Billy would quietly place some wood on the fire to brighten the light so he might be able to see whatever it was, but when the fire got brighter, the thing would retreat further away. Eventually, they let the fire die. When this happened, the creature walked into camp. The kid startled and frightened the creature, and all three men jumped up. The kid and Billy's friend standing behind him, Billy in front, closest to the unknown creature. Billy grabbed the only thing there was to grab, the cast iron pan, and held it above his head, ready to hit whatever the thing was in case it attacked, but it didn't. There they all stood, inches away from each other in the pitch dark, the creature on one side, and the three men huddled together on the other side. There they all stood in some sort of standoff, just a few feet from each other with the extinguished campfire between them. Billy said the thing was close enough that he could feel its breath on the hair of his arm. Oh my God. After a short time, the thing backed away and left through the woods, making a repeating clicking sound as it walked away. They didn't have any more problems on this hunt and went about their business. The kid never asked to go with them again. Although Billy continued to hunt, he never again experienced anything like what happened that night. Just for the record, they did not smell anything foul or unusual. I asked him if he thought it was a Sasquatch or a skunk ape they were called here, but he would not say yes. He would say that he didn't know what it was because he never saw it. He would also say that in all his life and all the time he spent in the woods, he never heard anything like it. It was heavier than they were, big, and definitely walked on two legs. Billy told me this story a few years before the exact same thing happened to me in May of '98. I wasn't poaching, though. My friend and I were returning to his home in Port Charlotte off the Kings Highway. We were coming back from the late-night fishing trip at about 2:30 a.m. It was a new moon and very dark with the only light coming from a distant street light and his front porch, but it was completely inadequate to light our surroundings. His house was in a sparsely populated place with few other houses. The land was primarily scrub oaks, and you could walk through the wooded areas of the neighborhood and under a nearby overpass to the main woods and cow pastures that stretched for miles east of the I-75. We were in his driveway, unloading our fishing equipment. About 30 yards away, just out of the ambient light cast by the front porch and the street light, we heard something discreetly walk on two legs from the sound on one side of the road, across the asphalt, and into the scrub oaks on the other side. We both turned our heads in its direction and just listened. Whatever it was heavy, heavier than my friend and I put together. It was, without a doubt, walking on two legs, two bare feet to be specific. And as it left the road and seemingly became aware of us, it made a repeating clicking sound. The sound of the whole event was almost muffled, and it wasn't until after the sound it made stop that my friend and I looked at each other asking, "Did you just hear that?" The recollection of Billy's story came back to me, and a gravity of what just happened sank in. Like Billy, I cannot say that we encountered a skunk ape because we could not see it. But I've spent many a majority of my life in the woods and around every animal that is found in the Florida woods, including panthers and bears, and I've never heard anything like it. Nothing I know of could have been responsible for the sounds we heard. I always wonder what we encountered that night. In a way, I feel our auditory encounter is more genuine than a visual encounter. A man can wear a suit and be mistaken for the real thing, but no man could have made the sounds we heard. It was something I am unable to identify. Whatever it was, however, has convinced me without any doubt that there is something in existence that I cannot explain or identify, and it lives in the woods, sometimes coming very close to us. Well, that is my story. Feel free to respond with any questions. I will elaborate if I am able. All right, man. Shankel McDew, you left a pretty detailed story with us to chew on for sure, with intimate details of where too, right? So I'm quite certain if anybody around your hood, has anything else similar, they're gonna talk about it in the comment section below, without a doubt, right? Without a doubt. And you know what it was. We all know what it was. We just don't know why yet, right?